Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Eugene's October 31st, 2025 program, What's Happening in Local Schools. My name is Thomas Hiura. I serve as president of City Club, and I'm pleased to welcome you to another of the many forums we've held since 1990 in the name of our mission to build community vision through open inquiry. City Club is lucky to be a trusted, open, and independent voice for Eugene area community members to be heard. And as a lifelong Eugenian, I dare say the community is lucky to have the City Club in return and to hear from our program guests and questions from the audience, whether here in the beautiful Wow Hall, online, or over the radio. We believe these kinds of gatherings around critical community topics strengthen our understanding of one another and ultimately our ability to support the community building work in so many sectors of the Eugene area. In today's fractured information landscape, we want to be a space where you can participate in unearthing, disseminating, and sharing relevant information in conversation together. We would love for you to browse our past programs at cityclubofeugene.org or our YouTube or Facebook. Please consider becoming a member if you'd like to support our rigorous volunteer work as Oregon's only city club that meets weekly. There are many ways to partner with us, and I'd like to thank our Diamond community sponsors. The University of Oregon has helped Oregonians question critically, think logically, reason effectively, communicate clearly, act creatively, and live ethically since 1876. Get more information at uoregon.edu. Lane Community College transforms lives through learning. LCC provides comprehensive, accessible, high-quality educational opportunities that promote student success. For more information, visit lanecc.edu. Thank you to the City of Eugene and to Lane County for their generous support as well. For those in the hall today, the crinkling of candy wrappers at your table will not be picked up by our microphones, but please silence any cell phones you brought with you. And with that, for the second week in a row, I proudly turn the mic over to the coordinator of our program today, Dr. Mary Layton.
This is just happenstance. But I want to tell you about my costume. When I was a baby administrator, I was the vice principal in charge of yelling at kids at West Orient Middle School in Gresham. And on the very first Halloween of my tenure there, the office told me that everybody in the office dresses like a pumpkin. And they made me the pumpkin outfit I have on right here. So I decided in honor of the anniversary of the nth year since I started this career, I would wear the pumpkin. You haven't really experienced disciplinary action until you've tried to yell at a kid wearing a pumpkin outfit. So the three metro area school districts, programs in career and technical education are flourishing. Test scores are trending upwards, but still disappointing because these are our brilliant children, after all. And public funding continues to be unpredictable. How do leaders of the local districts manage the mixed bag of variables that impact student and staff productivity? And as a former educational researcher, I can tell you, money counts. What accomplishments are they especially proud of? What new and traditional resources are they using to meet community expectations for our children's success? How do they work together to overcome obstacles? We have the three local superintendents here today. Miriam Mickelson has more than 20 years of experience across multiple levels of public instruction, including as a classroom teacher. I think of this as the very essential requirement of a principal and a leader, including as a classroom teacher, an instructional coach, a high school principal, an executive director of teaching and learning, and a superintendent in Washington State. Her leadership has been marked by a strong focus on instructional quality, operational excellence, and community partnerships. She speaks English, Tagalog, the national language of the Philippines, and Cebuano, the dialect of her island in the Philippines. And I know because once as a contract researcher I had to write a book on bilingual education, that if you learn several languages as a young person, you are far superior to most other people in the universe at conceptual flexibility. And nowhere in the planet is that more useful than in Eugene, Oregon, where we have 14 ideas for every concept. She is also known for building trusted partnerships with multilingual families, tribal leaders, LGBTQ2SIA+ advocates, and local organizations, reflecting her commitment to values-driven leadership and student-centered decision-making. She earned advanced professional degrees from Seattle Pacific University and a BS in Mass Communication from the University of San Jose Rescolatos in the Philippines. Craig Sproles, you met last week, has served as the Bethel superintendent since fall 2021. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Miriam just started this fall, so she's the one. She will refer deeper questions about history to the other guys. He worked as an administrator, Craig did, and teacher in several Oregon school districts, began his teaching career in Oregon as a middle school science and math teacher, which proves, if nothing else, that he has a great sense of humor, and later served as a principal at 3 elementary schools and then as the assistant superintendent in Salem-Keizer. His career includes serving as a combat engineer in the military and working at a community college primarily enrolling Indigenous students. Craig earned a BA at the University of Sioux Falls and an advanced professional degree at the University of Oregon. He studied school conditions that encourage teachers and students to flourish by establishing strong relationships, finding their learning meaningful, and experiencing joy. And finally, Todd Hamilton. He's been the superintendent of Springfield Public Schools since July 2019. Cresswell people trained him up. His career in education began as an elementary teacher, so we can assume he knows something about instruction. And his broad experience includes classroom teaching, instructional technology, student services, curriculum, and staff development. Prior to Springfield, he served as a superintendent in Cresswell. Todd has championed expanding opportunities across K-12 continuum, including early learning, college-level courses, and CTE programs. Springfield has awesome career and technical ed programs. He values strong community partnerships that support academic, social, and emotional needs of students. His guiding mission is to ensure that schools are welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environments where every student can thrive. He earned a BS in psychology at the University of Oregon and an advanced professional degree from Pacific University. Because I think we are all in need of encouragement regarding what miracles public institutions can produce when they are working effectively, I asked the superintendents to brag about district accomplishments that make them proud. We are only too aware that further miracles are needed, but it's healthy to remind each other about how much good we are already doing. Wearing my Interfaith Food Hub coordinator hat, I have a lot of contact with activities that positively impact neighbors who do not at this time have permanent housing. So I want to open with 2 examples of how students in these districts are contributing to those most in need of our support. Each Thursday, Everyone Village has a community meeting. As we all know, offering a tasty meal is a good way to get people to come to meetings. Interfaith Food Hub coordinates the work of getting a hot meal to Everyone Village each Thursday. Last year, North Eugene High School, South Eugene High School, Network Charter School, and Willamette High School provided 1 or 2 delicious multi-course meals for Everyone Village. And they will again this year, beginning with South Eugene High School on December 11th. And as a former Network Charter School principal, I want to say that Network has stepped up first each year. In collaboration with Lane Workforce Partnership and Team Oregon Build, students in construction programs at Churchill, Sheldon, South Eugene, North Eugene, Calapooya, Thurston, and Willamette High School have built 40 cottages. 27 more are underway, and 60 sheds have been contributed for transitional housing programs. I don't know about the rest of you, but my recent move unearthed a couple of birdhouses and a random other little tiny projects that my kids made when they were in high school shop programs. I'd much rather see them investing in micro homes for people who need homes. And I'm going to turn this over to Miriam. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mary. When I was a high school principal in Washington State, I had the good fortune of having my son, Zach, attend the school. And one day I was preparing my big welcome back speech assembly, and I wanted some student feedback on it. And so I asked my son to please read my speech and let me know what you think as a student. And his response as a freshman was, "Mom, please don't spend too much time on your speech because nobody really listens to principal speeches." So thank you for being here and for looking like you're paying attention, because I know Todd and Craig, we love to talk about public education and brag about our schools and our staff and our students. As Mary mentioned, I am new to Eugene. I started in July. And as I wrap up my first quarter in 4J as superintendent, and as I think about what's going on in the world, I wonder if I can just hold this. I'll just hold it. Probably better. As I was saying, as I wrap up my first quarter in 4J superintendent, and as I think about everything that is happening in the world, I continue to reflect on the words of author L.R. Nost. She said, "Here's to the bridge builders, the hand holders, the light bringers, those extraordinary souls wrapped in ordinary lives who quietly weave threads of humanity into an inhumane world. They are the unsung heroes in a world at war with itself. They are the whisperers of hope that peace is possible. Look for them in the present darkness. Light your candle with our flame, and then go. Build bridges. Be the hero you are looking for. Peace is possible. It begins with us." These words deeply resonate with me because, to me, they capture the essence of what it means to be an educator. Educators are bridge builders. We connect students to each other, to opportunities, and to their potential. And we are handholders, guiding our students through milestones and celebrations and challenges with love and care and compassion. We are light bringers, illuminating pathways to a future full of beautiful possibilities. Education is the foundation of hope. And I feel very blessed to be joining a community full of bridge builders who believe in the life-sustaining energy of community and in the transcendent connections made when we treat others with kindness and basic human decency. These are life lessons that educators, bridge builders in 4J, model for our students every day so wholeheartedly. And I am very proud to serve a school community that understands that public education is a transformative force in society, not only because we teach academics, but also because we help our students grow up to be bridge builders. For example, one of our former students and alumni of North Eugene High School, Javier Hernandez, was recently appointed the next Tokyo Bureau Chief for the New York Times. I think that deserves an applause. Javier's journalism career has taken him across the globe, including his work as China correspondent. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, he was one of the first journalists on the ground in Beijing, covering the outbreak's early stages. He was part of the New York Times team awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Public Service. A bridge builder in his work, Javier uses curiosity, truth-telling, and deep cross-cultural understanding to help people around the world make sense of one another's experiences. We see bridge building happening across our district every day. For example, our Future Build High School students recently constructed a new primary care clinic at the Everyone Village Safe Sleep site for unhoused community members. That project did not just address a critical community need. It built a bridge between classroom learning and real-world impact, showing our students that their skills can change lives here at home. This past summer, our facilities department completed roughly $24 million in capital projects, ensuring students and staff return to schools that are more secure, more welcoming, and more accessible for people with disabilities. Most of that work was funded through remaining dollars from the district's 2018 capital bond that our community members so generously passed. These were not just construction projects. They were acts of bridge building. From upgraded security systems to new accessible playgrounds at a dozen elementary schools, each improvement helps remove barriers, open doors, and create environments where every child can feel that they belong. And last month, North Eugene High School hosted its annual Unified Soccer Jamboree, bringing together student athletes with and without disabilities from 6 schools in the region. It was a celebration of inclusion, teamwork, and community, a powerful reminder of how bridge building can create spaces where all students feel welcome, seen, and able to participate meaningfully. And this year, we are so excited to expand a new high-dosage tutoring program shown to boost literacy for students in kindergarten through 3rd grade. In the Walk to Read program, students at each grade level who have demonstrated a need for reading support will walk in the school to a reading intervention group based on their specific skill needs. And student progress is reviewed every 6 to 8 weeks to determine if students need to move to new groups to better match their current needs. Between 2 pilot schools last year, 212 students participated in high-dosage tutoring, and 187 of those students, or 88%, demonstrated measurable improvement. This program is another kind of bridge, one that connects young learners with the foundational literacy skills they need to unlock future academic opportunity. And finally, there's a whole lot more, but I think we're only here until 1:15. But if we enumerated everything, we'll be here until midnight, if not longer. Megan Purdue, choir teacher at Sheldon High School, who also serves as our district's K-12 music curriculum specialist, was recently recognized nationally by the music teachers in the entire country. She designs adaptive instruments, including one-handed so every student can participate meaningfully in music. Her work builds a bridge to belonging and creativity, ensuring that ability or disability does not determine who gets access to the joy of music. As I look across 4J, our classrooms, our playgrounds, our teams, our programs, our people, I see a community of bridge builders. I see students using their hands and their hearts and their voices to strengthen our community. I see staff who show up every day with compassion and skill, creating spaces where all students are welcomed, challenged, supported, loved, and seen. And I am profoundly grateful, and I'm very proud to be an educator. I am very proud to be in public education. I am very proud to be doing this work that means so much to me in 4J. Thank you so much. Here's
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for that great introduction to what's happening in our schools. Miriam, we are so thrilled that you have joined us here in Lane County, and I am so blessed to be able to sit with you and Craig up here on stage today. Thank you for joining us. It really is a testament to Lane County that we have such amazing leaders in this area. This is my 29th year as an educator in Lane County. When I moved to Lane County, I started teaching at a school in Eugene. And I was in the Eugene School District for many years. I see many familiar faces in this room of people that I had a chance to get to know when I was there. And then I got recruited away by the National Superintendent of the Year, Krista Parent, who worked so closely with Colt Gill, who's also back here, and got a chance to continue my evolution and growth in this county. And as I've spent time here and watched, I'm so excited by what's happening in this area in particular, because we have people who truly care about education. And there's a lot weighing heavy on us right now, but today we get to come and celebrate. And I think next time, Craig, you're going to have to follow Miriam, because she kicked us off so well. I think the bar's a lot higher. So thank you for letting me join you today as the superintendent of Springfield. I got a chance to come across the river and be part of this conversation with my colleagues. For those of you who don't know as much about Springfield, we have about 9,000 students. We have about 1,500 staff members. And we have a budget that's about $260 million. And in that community, we have a bunch of people who walk into our buildings on a daily basis, who are there to connect and learn. We look different, we sound different, we speak different languages. And at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We want to be successful. We want to thrive in our community, and we want to make sure that not only is Springfield, but is Lane County and Eugene thriving as well, because many of our students graduate and stay in this area. And one of the really cool experiences I had as a new superintendent in Springfield was walking around in classrooms, in schools, and meeting people for the first time. And they would come up to me and they would say, "Todd, we're so happy that you're here. I want to tell you about Springfield. I went to this elementary school, I went to this middle school, and I graduated from this high school. And now I'm working in Springfield Public Schools." And the level of pride that they had in that conversation really helped me understand the nature of the Springfield community. They are there because they're committed to be there, and when things get tough, they roll up their sleeves and they work together and they figure out how to make things work. And when I sat down with my team, we talked about, okay, so what are the accomplishments that we want to share? And my team was so happy and excited to be able to get to that space, because there are so many great things happening in our schools right now. And so I had a really long list, and we had to pare it down because we have a short amount of time. But in Springfield, I want to start with graduation rates. You know, we're pretty slow to release graduation rates. January of this year, we released graduation rates for the kids that graduated in the previous June. But we celebrated, and we knew leading up to January there was a lot to be proud of, because well, not the first time, but it is the highest graduation rates in Springfield in recent history. The last time that Craig and I had an opportunity to join you, we were talking about how we were navigating the pandemic and what we saw, and we were optimistic at the time to say things are going to bounce back, and we're starting to see that in our schools. With our graduation rates, with our assessment rates, we saw the dip with the pandemic. I had a conversation with Beth this morning about some of the challenges that our students experienced when they were navigating the pandemic and learning. But we have resilient students, we have persistent teachers, and we are providing them with the tools and the resources so that they can help our students bounce back. And Springfield scores bounced back this year. For a district our size to see a 2% growth in reading and math and science, the data people start geeking out, because it seems like a little bit, but when you're talking about 9,000 students, that's a lot. So we're excited for the trajectory that we're seeing in our organization, because the data paints a picture for us. We have lots of anecdotal stories, some good, some challenging. And when we really dig into the data and we see those trends, we're excited by that. But really what we're doing is we're investing in students. And one of the conversations that we had when I first came to Springfield was, how are we going to use this infusion of new money that the district was going to have through the student investment account. And we heard loud and clear from our community, our teachers, our students, they wanted a well-rounded education. And that means a lot of different things to different people, but what we heard was we want students to have a qualified PE teacher in every building, a full-time music teacher in every building, and somebody in the library who is there full-time to be a resource for teachers, for students, to introduce them to books, to help them get excited about literacy and reading. And we now have that in Springfield. And with all of the challenges that we face, we see the benefit of that. The circulation data in our libraries right now is the highest it's ever been. So when we start talking about reading achievement data, that's great. But what I'm most excited about is kids are checking out books. And they're learning about the world. They're learning about stories. They're preparing themselves for the future to enter the world and be prepared and ready to be successful. In the district, we've also done some similar capital improvements. We were very strategic and intentional with our pandemic funds. And one of the things that we did is we updated the HVAC systems in every single building so that we now have climate-controlled systems when it's cold and hot. Because for those of you who've been in the community long enough know, and we as superintendents have learned over the last several years, we're not only dealing with snow days now, we're dealing with air quality days. So now we have spaces where we can keep students coming to school on a regular basis, whether it's hot, cold, smoky outside, or even better now, summer. We have had the benefit of summer funding and programming, and we now have had over 3,000 students each year participating in summer programming. Well, they're not coming to really hot and sweaty classrooms, they're coming to climate-controlled spaces. And so we're really proud of the investments that we've made that have benefited our students and allowed them to get the experiences that they need. The other investments that we've made have been in CTE. And if you've been tracking some of the CTE programs that have been developed recently, you may have heard about a cosmetology program in Springfield. We have an amazing group of adults in our system who were listening to students. And we had a group of students who were dropping out of school. And many students drop out for many different reasons, but we had some students dropping out because they just figured they wanted to be in the cosmetology career. They were going to drop out of high school and enroll in a cosmetology program. Cosmetology programs are not cheap. It is very expensive for a student to enroll in a cosmetology program. And so we heard that and we saw an opportunity, and with our partners, our community partners, we were able to advocate for a new CTE program. And we, with the support of our federal delegation, we had a small investment of federal funds to get a cosmetology program started. In June, we had our first graduating class of cosmetology students. Every single student who graduated from the program graduated debt-free, passed their cosmetology exams, and they were beginning jobs in their careers of their choosing over the next 2 months. When I went to school to become an elementary teacher, I never thought that cosmetology would be part of a program, but it's been a very successful program in our school. If any of you would like to be models, I will do a quick advertisement for our cosmetology program. They're looking for folks who would like to have their hair cut, who would like to have their nails done. We have an esthetician who would love to practice her skills on you with your skincare. So if you are interested, please let us know. There's information on our website about how you can come and access our cosmetology program and provide these students with really great practical experiences. And there is an adult in the room who can help with when the cutting gets a little errant and needs a little correction. But that was an example of a small group of students who shared an idea with us. One of the ways that we've expanded that recently, and I know that this is something that happens in other districts as well, especially around Lane County, and that is amplifying the student voice in our systems. Our buildings have a lot of adults with a lot of ideas, but we also have 9,000 students with a lot of ideas. And one of the things that we've done over the last 3 years is gather a group of students to really amplify what is on their mind. And 2 years ago, because this is the third year, 2 years ago they met and they talked, they had some really great conversations, but at the end of the year they said, you know, the things that are on our mind right now are bullying and harassment, mental health issues, and engagement. And last year, they took that to the next step and they put action plans in place. And we had small groups of high school leaders meeting to talk about how they as students would address issues of bullying and harassment in their schools and work with their school leaders and their staff to surface those discussions and how they can work together. And they came up with some really creative ideas. We had a student group focusing on mental health and supports. And they, as students, said, you know, these lists of community resources are really great, but I have friends who can't get there. So how can we remove the barriers so that my friends can get to these resources? And they identified the problems, they came together, and they came up with solutions. But the one that kind of got me at the core, those are really important. And when I heard that students are saying, I don't feel like I'm engaged in classroom, that hurts my teacher heart. Because as an elementary teacher, I always want kids to be engaged. And when I go into classrooms, I always want to see that engagement happening. Students between students, students with their teachers, and they were sharing a story with us about how hard that was, that they were going into classrooms and they just didn't feel like they were engaged. Well, those students came up with an idea about how they could have safe conversations in their schools with their teachers to say, hey, we need you to think a little differently about how you engage us in our classrooms. And it was the most powerful conversation because this is my 31st year in education. As a professional developer, we're often going into classrooms and talking about the importance of student engagement. When a child comes to you and says, I need you to think about student engagement, it lands differently. And there are some amazing things happening in our schools right now with students helping teachers evaluate teaching and learning activities and how those activities are engaging students in deep and meaningful ways. And we're seeing the quality of teaching and learning and engagement improve. We're seeing the assessment improve. And this, for many reasons, happens. But when students participate in that, it's a really special and magical experience. So we're really excited about the student voice opportunities that we're seeing in our district right now. And as part of that, they also surfaced the basic needs. You know, how are we continuing to support students so when they come to our schools, they can access the teaching and learning and they're not distracted by hunger? We have a nutrition services program that is trying to be as creative as they possibly can to produce exciting meals for students. And they're continually, I would say, food testing, introducing new meals to see what kids are interested in. One of the things that we've tried to do is work with our national partners at the U.S. Department of Agriculture to give them feedback on how we can provide food to our students that is not only interesting, but also fills them up. Because we heard from our high school students, they go into the cafeteria and that 5'6" ninth grader who's standing next to the 6'4", 250-pound lineman, from the federal government's perspective, we serve them the same. And we had a chance to carry the students' message back to Washington, D.C. last March as part of our United Front trip with our community partners advocating at the federal level. And that is hopefully going to come back around. It was an interesting conversation, but they heard us. They heard us, and so hopefully we will see that in action here coming up soon at the federal government rate, which is often very slow. But it goes back to kids giving us the stories about their basic needs and how we carry those messages forward. And whether the federal government figures that out or we do that in Springfield, we have the people in our organization, in our district, that really want to make sure that kids' needs are being met. I talked a little bit about that strong partnership with our United Front group. In Springfield, we also have something called Team Springfield, where the city of Springfield, Willamette Lane Parks and Rec, because we don't have a Parks and Rec in the city, Springfield Utility Board, and Springfield Public Schools, we come together on a weekly basis, my counterparts and I, to talk about problems of practice, talk about how we can support each other as organizations. One of the challenges that we surfaced a couple years ago was this notion of how are we going to keep kids busy during the summer, especially during the pandemic, when they have been isolated on their own. And we partnered with Willamette Lane to support their One Pass summer program. We used our pandemic funds, and we've used other summer learning grant funds to support students accessing the One Pass. We had 4,500 students access this One Pass program through Willamette Lane. And One Pass allows a student to go and visit pools around the community, skate parks, the museums, anything where you can envision engaging a student during the summertime. Willamette Lane has worked to see if they can provide opportunities. Students who want to golf, students who want to go to the trampoline park and jump. Those 4,500 students swipe their cards when they go in to these experiences. They had almost 70,000 swipes this last summer. So this simple conversation about how do we keep kids engaged in the summertime and how do we partner with our local agencies to provide experiences for our kids, we had 4,500 students swipe their One Pass card 70,000 times last summer. So we are excited by the partnerships that we have in our community, but I think the one thing that we are most excited about right now, and I think Lane County is pretty special because I think it's probably the third time in the last 6 or 7 years we have had an Oregon Teacher of the Year in our community. And Sally Golden, who is our Community Transitions Program teacher, and for those of you who don't know, our Community Transition programs support students age 18 to 21. These are typically students who need help navigating that next step to go out into the community to be successful. Sally was named Oregon Teacher of the Year this month. And one of the things that I think is most special about that is not only the population of students she serves, but it's very rare for a specialist like that to be recognized as a Teacher of the Year. And so we're really excited about our students. They get to be celebrated in a great way. Sally gets to be celebrated in a great way. And Sally is that exceptional teacher who reminds us of the lives that we impact and how we change those lives by the amazing work that we do. And looping back to the beginning, Sally is one of those teachers who came through the system, is back working in Springfield, and she is making a difference every day that she is there. So thank you for letting me share a little bit about Springfield, and I think I'm going to hand it off to Craig now.
So thank you for being here. I'm Craig Sproles, and I'm incredibly proud to be the superintendent in Bethel. I was actually at the City Club just last week, so this is becoming a regular routine for me to be able to come and tell you a little bit about what's happening in Bethel. When our tagline is in Bethel is that we think about creating relevant, responsive, and joyful school communities where all students thrive. So thinking about those three things, relevancy, being responsive, and being joyful, I think at this moment in time, where we are today as a people, those three things are incredibly important to us. They're not just important for our students who show up every day, they're important for us as a people. I couldn't help but take this opportunity to realize the role that schools serve, you heard Miriam talk about being points of light in our community. You heard Todd talk about all of the different ways that we support our community, not just during the school day, but outside of the school day as well. And our bedrock is still academic progress. But the role that a school district serves today and the role that Bethel and Springfield and 4J serve in our community is profound. So as many of us know, SNAP benefits end tomorrow. That has a profound impact on our students and families who show up every day hungry. It is really darn hard to learn to read if you're hungry when you show up. The number one provider of food, both breakfast and lunch, in our Bethel community is our schools. We provide free lunch for all of our students, regardless of their income, and they don't have to prove. You might remember, I definitely remember this as somebody who navigated that with my own self when I was a student. You had a line for the kids who were on who could get free lunch, and a different line for kids who didn't. I don't know if you remember that at all. I definitely remember that as a student growing up in Nebraska. That's what I navigated as a student living in poverty. But we provide that bedrock of nutrition for our community. And I think we also need to think about how do we as people start showing up for each other. Another way that we show up for each other is a lot of our families are living in fear right now, particularly our families who are undocumented or our families who are navigating the immigration system. Can you imagine showing up to school, trying to learn to read and write when you're hungry and you're also worried about what's happening back at home, or worrying what's happening in your apartment complex, or worrying what's happening throughout your community? So as schools, we are that place that shows kids you can show up for who you are. We're going to love you up for who you are. We're going to feed you, and we're going to teach you to read. So I think the way, and this is a call for all of us in this room and all of us listening, now is the time for us to show up. Schools every single day, and one of the things I absolutely love about Bethel is that we show up for our community. We show up as all of the things going on in the world, and we allow students in, and we love them up for who they are. So when I think about this notion of thriving, we all mentioned how do we thrive, and I did just a few blocks that way. I did get a doctorate from the University of Oregon, and I studied flourishing and this notion of flourishing. And so when I think about the high points in Bethel, I want to present to you like there's different components of flourishing. It sounds like kind of this frou-frou-y thing that's hard to measure and hard to realize, but there's actually really important components to it. So it's this idea of PERMA. So it's positive affect, and so that's happiness. It's engagement, it's relationships, it's meaningful works, and it's having a sense of achievement or collective efficacy. So just the last 2 weeks, I'm just going to highlight things I've seen in Bethel in the last 2 weeks. You don't get anything more joyful than a kindergarten classroom. So I was at Malabon Elementary at the start of the school day, and when we think about our society, a lot of times we talk about a lack of trust, that people don't trust each other. We talk about discord, and yet we have families that trust us enough that they drop off their 5-year-old in the parking lot and they say, we trust you to take care of our kids and to love up our kids. And that's happening at Malabon Elementary. So I went to Malabon. We had what was an apple day. So the kids were taking bites of different types of apples. If you want to see a showcase in resilience, think about a 5-year-old who may only have 2 teeth, having an apple that's half the size of their head, trying to take bites of this apple and then rate what that apple was. So that type of joy, that type of happiness that's present every single day in every single one of our classrooms is something that I wish we could just market. I wish we could have folks come in and see that and experience that, because it's hard to think everything's wrong in the world when you see a kindergartner trying to bite into an apple. When I think about this notion of engagement, that's another part of thriving, is like, how are we engaged? I think about the Calapooya Builds program. So Calapooya is our alternative high school at Bethel. I don't think this is, maybe it is, I'm a little prejudiced on this. I think it's the best alternative high school in the state. And what they do at Calapooya is they take kids that aren't successful at Willamette, they're credit deficient, they're struggling to find their place at Willamette, which is a school of about 1,500 kids, and they get those kids back on track. So last year, Calapooya graduated about 60% of their students in 4 years and nearly 80% in 5. So think about every single student who came in those doors was horribly credit deficient, many of them on the path to what we would traditionally have called a dropout. That is a life-changing trajectory. Last year we graduated about 67 students from Calapooya. So I was at Calapooya, and we have what's called the Community Builds program there. This is done in conjunction. The Oregon Community Foundation donors help to be able to sponsor this. We work with St. Vinny's. We work with lots of different programs because the Community Builds program is a shop where students are learning how to construct different parts of the construction process to create mini homes for folks. We turned out our first home last year. So that home is now in the community, making a difference in the lives of our fellow folks who live in Eugene. And here's the amazing thing. Many of the students working on that home have experienced themselves with unsecure housing. So when we think about how do we create a relevant environment for kids, how do we create an environment where students can actually see what they're doing making a difference in the world, that's a really, really great example of that. If you want to find a deeply engaged group of students, go to Calapooya Builds, because they are engaged not only in what they're learning, but they are deeply engaged in making a positive difference in their world and in our collective world as well. So the third part about thriving is this notion of relationships. So we talked about positive affect or joy, we talked about engagement, and relationships is the third part of thriving. So we have in Bethel, we are experiencing declining enrollment, which I talked about this last week when I was on this very stage. And so we've had to close the school. So we closed Clear Lake Elementary at the end of last year. And when we thought about closing of a school, and if you haven't gone through that, it is really tough to close a neighborhood elementary school. I deeply remember my own neighborhood elementary school that my kids went to, Llewellyn Elementary in Portland Public. I have such strong memories of walking across that playground and dropping off Leo. He's 25 years old now, but dropping off Leo to Mrs. Tercey's classroom at Llewellyn Elementary. It is a part of me. It's a part of my history. It's a part of our family history. So when you close an elementary school, it's a big deal. So we decided to close Clear Lake Elementary School as an elementary school, and then a week later, we reopened it as a community center. The relationships that make that community center function, Preschool Promise, Food for Lane County, NAACP of Eugene and Springfield, Honey. We think about Nurturely, which is a group that provides supports for folks who are Thank you. Does that say 12 minutes or 2 minutes? 2 minutes. Okay, I better speed up this PERMA thing. Mary just gave me the 2-minute thing, 2-minute hook. So the relationships that we were able to nurture from that provided opportunities for hundreds of students to be able to have an experience this summer. And the relationships, and that's one of the things that a lot of times when we think about relationships, we think about student-to-student relationships, and we think about teacher-to-teacher and teacher-to-student. But these are relationships for folks in Eugene who show up for each other. These are organizations, nonprofits, who showed up for our families and made this all possible. So what am I most proud of in across our district? We have doubled down on early literacy. We strongly believe that if students are strong readers and writers, they can be agents of change in their own lives and agents of change in our communities. Now more than ever, if you can't read and write, it's really hard to do that. It's hard to be the author of your own future if you can't do that. So we've doubled down on early literacy. We've doubled the number of students who can read by the end of 3rd grade in Bethel. Here, let's clap for that. Thank you. That just took up 15 seconds of my 2 minutes right there. So, but I think it was worth it. So, and how have we done that? We created a summer learning program that was one of the best in the state. We had the governor come this summer to be able to recognize the summer learning program that we have in Bethel. We focused on high dosage tutoring, which is just small groups of teachers working with small groups of students working on a specific skill that they have. Because we definitely believe if we can leverage those relationships and create environments where all students can learn, we're going to propel them on for the future they're choosing. We've also invested deeply in middle school engagement and middle school activities. We see an interesting thing across our schools. Kids report a really high level of engagement at 5th grade, a really high level of belonging at 5th grade. They walk across the parking lot and become a middle schooler, and it starts to dive. So 6, 7, and 8 is an area where belonging and engagement is something that we have invested heavily in. So we have after-school programs. We have a lot of affinity groups. We have what's called the WIN period. This is what I need now, which is time during the day to be able to have homeroom. And we're seeing our engagement levels at middle school, in particular, greatly increase. And then the last thing that we've done is invested heavily in CTE, so career technical education. So when we think about being a relevant system, not all of our kids are pointed towards a 4-year education anymore. My wife's a professor at Oregon State, this other institution just a little bit north of here. And at places like Oregon State and U of O, the number of students who are coming straight from high school into a 4-year college is starting to decrease relatively rapidly. That's because there's lots of paths to success now. So we've been a little slow in K-12 to leading the way and making sure that we're providing kids lots of ways to demonstrate their genius, lots of ways to propel themselves into the futures of their choosing. If it's a 4-year program, that's amazing. We have really, really strong international baccalaureate programs that are highly rigorous, that prepare you well to be able to do well in that environment. If it's a different thing that our students want to pursue, I went into the military. I was in the Army because I needed that experience, and then I went back and I then went back to college after that. It was a different path at the time. There weren't many people doing that. Now there's lots and lots of people doing that. So I'm really, really proud. We have high graduation rates approaching 90% at a place like Willamette High School. We're really, really proud of that. And we've invested deeply in that because we believe graduation is your ticket to the future. But we're also thinking about when you walk across the stage and graduate, how are we preparing you for the life that you choose? Not the life that we might have chose for ourselves when I graduated in 1986. Things were different then. So one of the things I love about Eugene is that Eugene shows up for our schools. Bethel shows up for the Bethel School District, and I appreciate all of you showing up today and participating in this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll begin our Q&A quite soon, but first a special thank you to our award-winning public radio station KLCC for airing City Club programs on Mondays at 7 p.m. In Eugene and Springfield, they broadcast on 89.7 FM. For those listening at home or in the car, for those listening at home or on your commute right now, your household is one of several thousand tuning into City Club on KLCC. We're truly honored to have you. You can also find all recent City Club programs archived at klcc.org, as well as on our YouTube channel and the City Club of Eugene podcast. We want as much time as possible for questions for our superintendents, so we'll have just a 2-minute break. Say hi to your neighbor and line up as we return for Q&A. And just one more time for our guests. A round of applause. Okay, I think of today's program. If anybody has questions, feel free to line up. Our first question will come from City Club of Eugene board member Kelly Johnson.
Thank you all so much for being here today, and it was really nice to just hear about all the successes that you're having. What a breath of fresh air. But I do know that probably each of you is experiencing some budget issues, and you all spoke really beautifully about the power of CTE and the different programs that you have. And I guess my question is, do the districts ever collaborate on CTE to make kind of cost savings? Like if you have a great program in Springfield, can students kind of access that? Like could there be any sharing across CTE programs?
That's such a great question. And a really good example of that is a program called Project Hope that works with St. Vinny's, where we all have students who participate in building a series of tiny homes in a large warehouse that is off of, out in the industrial area, which is such an ambiguous answer. That could be anywhere. So that direction. So it's a really nice example of us working with a nonprofit. And so the students there, and it's students from our districts, but it's also students from all over Lane County. So there's 16 school districts across the state. And so it's an opportunity, or across the county. So it's an opportunity for all of these different groups to be able to send students and have that experience together, especially for some of our rural districts. When you only have 30 or 40 graduates at a time, it's really hard to have a really strong CTE program. So, great question.
Thanks again for being here. I'm Kathleen Willett, a member of City Club. I have read about perhaps a statewide curriculum benefiting our test scores and our students actually throughout the state. Apparently there's different requirements in different counties, and because of that, you really can't be sure that everybody's getting what the basics that they need. Comments or do I understand that correctly, and what is your take on that?
I'm a little confused. So it's a statewide curriculum, a statewide adopted curriculum?
Yes, am I right in believing that each county has their own curriculum?
Kind of, yes. So the Department of Education puts out kind of a catalog of different curriculums that meet certain criteria, and then we choose from that. And so there is some variability from spot to spot. There is right now a lot of energy for a specific way of teaching literacy. It's called the science of reading. And there's a lot of curriculums. It's more of a pedagogical way, and also a way that we use data. That is really moving the dial for students, and we're seeing a lot of districts across the state adopt that.
Do you think the students would benefit from a statewide mandatory curriculum in terms of test scores that we're being evaluated on today?
I should pass that one to my superintendent friend here to answer. I think having some variability within guide rails is the way to go. There's 197 different school districts in the state, and the lived conditions in all of those districts are very, very different. So I think making sure that there's some essential characteristics that are in each of those, but providing some local control, I actually really like that system.
We also had a CEO speak to us a couple of years ago, local manufacturing. And this woman complained that she had a very difficult time finding employees with basic math skills to hire. So any comments about that from either of you, any of you?
Any brief comments?
I don't know how I got the microphone. It feels,
Yeah.
but it kind of like all rolled downhill.
Yeah.
I think basic mathematic literacy and literacy are two essential components that we're all very much focused on. And I think there was a drop during the pandemic for basic skills, both in mathematics and in literacy. So we had large numbers of students that didn't get the explicit and structured instruction that they needed to be able to move the dial. So I would agree with that. I think we're making some strong gains now, but it's taken some time.
Thank you.
I'd like to elaborate on the science of reading because it's very impactful. In case you're not familiar with it, it's based on a large body of research that focuses on how the brain learns to read and what are the most impactful instructional practices for all learners. So the science of reading is a very systematic and explicit way of teaching skills such as comprehension, fluency, vocabulary, phonics, so our students have strong foundational literacy skills. So in 4J, for example, we align our professional development, our instructional resources with the science of reading so we can have confident readers using those evidence and research-based practices. I wanted to take the opportunity to make sure that I elaborate on that because a lot of school districts use the science of reading, and like I said, it's very impactful. So you may hear it, and in case you're wondering what that is, I wanted to share that information.
And I think the one piece that I would add to that, and you talked about professional development. So I think the reason that we paused on the instructional materials question is that that's just one component. That's the relationship between the instructional materials, the student, and the teacher. And what we know that's very clear in research is the number one impact on the success of the student in the classroom is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. So we're looking at multiple facets in how we make sure that we are providing the supports and materials and resources to make sure that everyone is successful. The instructional materials are successful, the students are successful, and the teacher is successful.
Joel?
I thought you kept talking just to avoid my question. What is the one program that you don't have now that you would like to implement?
They don't want to leave anything out.
I think so first of all, great question, and I think the challenge is it's not just one program that I'm thinking of, and it goes back to how are we listening to students, thinking about future career opportunities. CTE is a hot topic right now. We would love to expand CTE programming. Craig talked about the Hope Factory. There's a small project right now happening with our fire sciences programs. So school districts in Lane County are working with the Eugene Springfield Fire Department to introduce students to EMT programming and initial coursework in fire sciences to stimulate that. We've seen high interest in those areas. For me, it's really thinking about how do we put CTE programs in place because there's a heavy lift with an investment, and we want to make sure that we're doing it in a sustainable way. So it really varies from place to place.
And again, this isn't a program, but generative artificial intelligence is going to transform public education as we know it. To radically differentiate and radically individualize experiences, the role of content, so memorizing a set of facts is that you have on your phone is no longer the relevant way to be able to teach and address that. So I do think generative AI, it's not a program, it's a transformational technology. I think the way that our schools look right now with 28 kids all sitting in the same class, all going through the exact same content areas, it's going to look radically different in 10 years. I hope it does. And I think this provides us a possibility to do it. So that's what I think we should be thinking about.
I'm Martha Ravitz, longtime City Club member, and welcome to you all. I'm also a former educator. I was a professor of English, and I had 3 kids who went through 4J and had wonderful educational backgrounds that have carried them into adulthood. I'm wondering, my concern is early literacy, and I'm concerned about something as practical and maybe statistical as classroom size. Kelly mentioned budget cuts. I'm wondering what you've seen in terms of changes in classroom size, which I think has so much to do with student-teacher engagement.
That is a truly valid concern. And 4J, you may have heard, we are facing a $30 million budget shortfall for next year. And one of the concerns that constantly keeps rising to the top is how will that impact classroom size. So that is something that we're paying very close attention to and doing our very best to manage, even as we try to balance our budget next year, because it's not easy. Education, providing quality education to all our students is not easy, and if class sizes balloon, it just makes it that much harder. So while I don't have very specific answers right now, what I will say is I agree with you, and I echo that sentiment, and it's getting harder and harder given the limited resources that we have to have very small class sizes. So what are some of the things that we can do as a school district to provide supports to build the capacity of our educators, to build the capacity of our EA supporting our students, given the current reality that we have?
Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for today, but our panelists today are very reachable and very responsive to the community, so please reach out to them to learn more. And thank me in joining Superintendents Todd Hamilton, Miriam Mickelson, and Craig Sproles. This has been our October 31st, 2025 conversation at the City Club of Eugene. We'll be back here next week at Wow Hall on Friday, November 7th at noon. That program is called The Gaps in Employer-Provided Behavioral Health Care. It's sure to be a great forum, and we're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you all. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.